Hello everyone. Today we have two guests, Arjenne Louter and Lodewijk Jongbloed. Arjenne has been a PhD coach for nearly 17 years, and Lodewijk is an author and publisher with almost 10 years of experience and has completed a PhD in job satisfaction of physicians. Together, they are two of the three authors of the recently launched book, Travel Guide to Your PhD: How to Finish Your Thesis Successfully, Healthily, and on Time. As someone who has completed a PhD, I know a book like this is a must-read. Welcome to Lexter Interviews. Arjenne, Lodewijk, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Happy to be here.
Could you start by telling a bit about yourselves?
Sure. My name is Arjenne Louter. I'm also known as the Dutch PhD coach. And I help PhD students to finish their thesis successfully, healthily, and on time. And I do that since 2008, so almost 17 years now.
And I'm Lodewijk Jongbloed, and I worked in the healthcare industry, but I was trying to do a PhD and finished in 9 years. And if I have had the book, which is written now, it would have been 5 or 6 years. So that's why I want it to be written.
This book, indeed. You both are two of the three authors. There's a third one.
Yes.
You said something about yourself. How would you, say, what would you say about the third author?
Well, Mario Wijnen was actually a colleague of mine during my PhD time. And when I was in despair, she said you should follow the course of Arjenne Louter. Yeah. So she went in 2012, I went in 2013, was enthusiastic about it. Now, that was actually one of the beginnings of this whole story.
Yeah.
You were going to say?
No, that indeed, I was going to say the same. So,
But Mario evolved further. She went to Germany. She had a PhD about a comparison about Germany and Holland, about student success, medical students. And then she was asked to come to Germany, actually to Munich, to be an assistant professor. And from there she became a full-time professor, or how you call it, in Dresden.
A full professor, yeah.
So when I spoke about Arjenne, about this book, and we were talking about writing it, and I said, maybe we can ask Mario to bring in the point of view from a professor.
Yeah.
And she was directly enthusiastic about it.
Absolutely.
And it turned out to be very worthwhile.
Yeah.
So that's the three of you. Arjenne, you have been a PhD coach for nearly 2 decades, 17 years to be exact.
Yes.
How many people have you coached until now? Roughly.
Thousands.
Yes.
Hmm.
What has been, why are you laughing?
Oh, so many.
Yeah.
It amazes me as well.
Yeah. What has been the most rewarding in coaching others?
Making life easier for them and seeing them prosper and become more happy again and more confident, more relaxed, more in balance. Yeah, that's...
How long does it usually take you to work your magic for someone to be more...
It depends on what's going on. One of my signature programs is in Dutch it's called meters maken. You can't translate it directly into...
To make miles, kind of, or...
You probably could say making a leap or something like that. And it's a 5-month coaching program. And that's enough time to actually change the way you work and the way you think. And that worked out very well.
Well, what is the shortest period that you can work with someone?
Sometimes it's just having a conversation. What can make a big difference?
And Lodewijk?
Yeah, I can go on. I can talk about that because the next question is what surprised me during my PhD.
Man, you took away the surprise. my next question. And I actually was going to ask another question. I was going to do it differently. But sure, go ahead.
Can we go on?
Yeah.
And, what amazed me was that when I followed this 3 or 4 days course with Arjenne, the shells fell off my eyes. And I thought, this is how you write scientifically. But why did nobody tell me about it? It was somewhere in my 5th year. And then I started thinking, oh, there must be a lot of other things that I don't know. So what amazed me is that actually I finished my PhD after 9 years with all these pitfalls that I fell in. And the other thing is that supervisors, at least in those time, and this is 2013, think that a PhD student or candidate is able to write scientifically, is able to make such a plan, is able to navigate through all this literature. And then I said to my supervisor, why doesn't the university offer these courses? And she said, well, yeah, we offer it. And I went and it was in the afternoon about scientific writing. No, with Arjenne, it was morning, afternoon, evening. Next day, morning, evening. And then, of course, it made a leap. And I realized that in these things, there are so much more to know. And now, today with graduate schools, it's probably better than then, huh? But still, we need the book,
yeah,
I'm sure.
Yeah.
So actually all universities, I mean, it also depends on your supervisor, because I had 2 great supervisors, but especially Rosie Cox, let me mention her name. She was really, really amazing. She was really cool. She guided me also, like, maybe take that course, maybe look these stuff up, online or whatever, read these books. But on the other hand, just having that book, because if I've had this book at the beginning, it would have helped me so much more. So if universities have more of these, tips or just this book, that would help out a lot.
I think the big difference is with the courses that graduate schools offer are much more about the content.
Yeah.
The big difference is this whole book is about the process, how to approach it, how to do it, how to think it, what steps to take. And somehow that is overlooked in university. Yeah, because the content is so important, the focus is really there. But if the process is not okay, the content doesn't come out. So the process needs to be okay, and then the content will follow, and not the other way around, as often is thought.
Indeed, because Arjenne, you haven't done a PhD, and you are the PhD coach.
Yes.
How did that happen? You never thought like, okay, let me do a PhD myself. No. So then No,
it's simply it's not my ambition. I'm much better in supporting people, and I often compare it with, like for instance, a sporter, a top athlete who is training for, let's say the Olympics. That's also a 4-year period, so it's a bit similar to a PhD. They need a big group of support around them, and not everyone who supports them is a top athlete as well. So for me, I don't need to have had the experience myself to be able to support them very well. I mean, I know the university inside out. I've worked there at many different universities. I also did research myself, so I know what that's about. I know the climate, I know what's going on, and that's enough to really support them. And actually, it's often very beneficial to be an outsider, because PhD candidates can speak with me about things they can't speak about so easily with their own supervisors, because there's always, some belang, I'm looking for the word, some interest in the outcome. So they are not objective, and I can be, as an outsider, much more objective about what's going on and make things clearer.
When did you decide to write a book about it?
Well, I was actually asked to write a book by an English publisher about 10 years ago, so in 2014, because he read my blogs. I was already blogging then for a few years. And, of course, I felt very honored and said yes to that. And then wrote a chapter. They were very enthusiastic. Next chapter, still very enthusiastic. And when it was almost finished, they all of a sudden said, no, we're not going to publish it. They couldn't explain
out of the
why.
Blue.
It was really out of the blue. And they said, no, we're not going to do it. Well, and as an author, there's not much you can do. I mean, if the publisher says, I'm not going to publish it, you can jump or scream or whatever, but it doesn't help. So then I left it for a while, and I thought about publishing it myself, but I then thought, that's difficult, and I've been thinking about finding a publisher. Didn't know exactly how to do that, and well, I got some problems with my health, so I left it. And then Lodewijk we were still in contact. After the course he followed with me. I coached him well.
I asked sometimes there, can you look at this article?
And then we came to speak about the book, and then Lodewijk said, well, actually, I think that book's very important, that it is going to be published. Why don't we start it up again?
I have a publishing company.
Yeah. So let's make it happen.
And I know a lot of pitfalls, so I want to help you and make the text even better.
How long did it take from there on?
Well, there was also, it's a bit like a PhD. It had a lot of delays and different roads.
We didn't have a supervisor.
No, that's true. COVID came in between, and I had, at the end of 2022, a very serious operation, a heart operation, and I needed to, I got what's called support heart. Mm-hmm. So that's a serious operation, and I needed to recover from that for quite some time, for almost a year. So then the project was, from my side at least, I couldn't do much. But actually in that period, Lodewijk took it upon him to interview PhD candidates who were also, that's also part of the book, experts in supervising and all those kinds of things. So Lodewijk went on, and when I was able, I could pick it up again as well. So
it's a good collaboration.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that collaboration, though. Did you have any kind of, back and forth about the direction of the book, perhaps, or?
Well, actually, it went very smooth. I read, Arjenne started to rewrite the text, which is probably one of the reasons why it is so good, because when you have some years in between, it matures. And when I read the text, I remember, this is the way you should do it. Exactly about this process. Huh?
Yeah.
And so I was enthusiastic about the text from the beginning on. And although we differ on several things that made it more complete. On the text, we had never any discussions.
No, it's sometimes talking a bit or having some discussion about it. Like, do we need to add something, or is this a bit too much? Do we need to leave something out? But in general...
it went very smooth.
Yeah.
We had every 2 weeks on Monday morning. We had our Monday morning talk. Yeah. And then we decided what we will do in the next 2 weeks. And you do this, and I do that. And then after 2 weeks, we went on.
But still, Lodewijk, she started out as being your coach. And you said you both didn't have a supervisor, but wasn't she kind of also still, being coachy?
That was helpful. What happened is that when I was 30 years old, the computer entered my life, So I wasn't brought up with it. So on these Monday mornings, I said to Arjenne, the Dropbox is not working, and can you help me? So we shared the screen. Then usually I was too quick. Always admired the patience of Arjenne that, no, Lodewijk, go back to the left. So she coached me on that very well.
In your enthusiasm.
You
sometimes go off, and then it needs a little slowing down or a little.
Yeah, but then I found she's a real coach. It's go slowly, and I'll help you, etc., etc. That was very important. About the direction and the text, it was it was always similar.
Arjenne, about your coaching, I read something about this Asian, I'm a little bit scared to pronounce it, but this Asian training that you follow.
You mentioned, I think you mean Qineng Qigong.
That.
Yes.
What is that, and how does that influence your coaching?
Qineng Qigong is a very old Chinese, how to put it? It's, if you look in traditional Chinese medicine, They have 5 pillars they work with. It's herbs, it's acupuncture, it's food, it's massage, and it's Qin and Qigong. And it originates from self-defense. A lot of people know Tai Chi. Another way of putting it, it's the Chinese sister of yoga. So it's in that direction, and it's about, you make kind of meditational movements. It's meditation in movement, and it helps to focus, it helps to calm down, it helps to train your mind also to switch off and to relax. And that feeds basically everything.
And when did you start with this?
I started with that, I think now 8 years ago or something, 8-9 years ago. And immediately after my first lesson, I was very enthusiastic about it. So I dove into it, did the teacher training. First level, there are 3 levels in Qin and Qigong, and that's a year, that training, and then did master classes for the 2nd level, for the 3rd level. I'm still being taught myself, but I also teach it. And sometimes I also organize a Qi Flow Day, is what I call it, for PhD students. Also for them to learn how to switch off and focus.
I must add that I was very amazed how much work Arjenne could do in her rehabilitation period. She had not so much energy, but in these 2 weeks she did a lot. So I asked, how is this possible? And she's mentioned Qigong. And then I said, huh? And then she had a course. So I went there. But it didn't feel to me, although every meditation is good. Yeah. But everybody has to choose its own way. And,
sure.
But it must help. I mean, she does so much with her energy.
Well, it must help or have helped in writing this book as well. This book is a travel guide, also has a travel guide, because you have a brochure with a map through PhD land and everything. Why did you decide to do all of this way? Why a travel guide?
Should I take that?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I like the metaphor of a travel guide, but all my books, they have the red line that it helps people in unknown territory. Another book I wrote was about travel guide to home health care, because there's so many rules and restrictions, and the psychology of this whole area is so complex that I lost my way myself. And then I decided to write a book about it, and that was very successful. And then it's unknown territory for most people.
How successful was that book?
I sold 10,000 copies of the travel guide, and it's still selling. And in the last 5 months, I sold 1,100 copies. So, yeah. And as I am a publisher myself, I wouldn't say I could live with it, but it helps. I'm actually retired. And then this book is also about unknown territory. And it's like if you go to South America, you buy The Lonely Planet, and it helps you to find your way. So when I suggested the title, Arjenne was enthusiastic about it. And then I made a map on an evening, and I like to draw maps. And then you were enthusiastic about it as well.
Yeah.
That's how it came about. Let me read a bit more what I see here on the cover. Travel guide to your PhD. How to finish your thesis successfully, healthily, and on time. And when I read it, I also read that you say that it is successfully, healthily, and on time, and that it is simple, but not easy.
Yeah.
Could you explain that?
Well, if you know how to do something, then it becomes more simple. But knowing how to do it doesn't make it easy. I mean, there are still pitfalls, there are still tough times, there are still drawbacks. So when you know how to navigate them, it becomes more simple. But a PhD journey is never easy, because you are charting unknown territory. You're doing something that has never been done before. So yeah, that's not easy.
What are the common pitfalls regarding doing a PhD? Well, actually, the beginning regarding planning, because you have a chapter dedicated to planning? What are the common pitfalls?
The biggest one is to not have a plan at all. Yeah. Or to make a plan that doesn't help you. I mean, usually when you start, you have to make a plan. It's part of one of the things your supervisor asks you, or what the university asks about. And then people come up with something, and it looks, nice on paper, but it doesn't say anything about reality. And it's not something that can help you or support you or guide you. And then, it can't be otherwise than that you get lost. Because 4 years is a long time, and your subject, especially in the beginning, is usually vast and big. So what if you don't have a plan? How can you approach it? You can't.
So have a plan. That is one.
Absolutely.
Another one? I like the 80-20 rule that you spoke about.
Yeah. Well, one of the things with planning is that people always plan 100% of their time. But there's one thing sure in life, and that is that unexpected things will happen. Always. Always, always. But you don't know when. But if you don't have the time, for those unexpected things...
Or energy,
it will always be something extra upon the already 100% that you planned. So you always get behind, get exhausted, do too much. So a rule of thumb is indeed never plan 80%, more than 80% of your time, because the other 20% will fill itself with the unexpected things. And for some people, depending a bit on the situation you are, it's even 70-30 or 60-40 or 50-50. Because, it could be because you are having another job that a lot of things come up, or you have a family, or, it could be all kinds of circumstances. And if you use this rule, it helps you to, stay in balance and not overwork, as most PhD candidates, and also is the culture in academia, to overwork and to work, basically 24/7.
And Lodewijk, you mentioned energy. I also read something about not focusing so much on time management, but energy management.
Yeah. That's a book of Lure and Schwartz. And there are some books that you always remember. Most books not. But this is one of the books. And it said about 4 sorts of energy. Physical energy, spiritual, social energy.
Mental energy.
And mental energy. That are the 4. And they studied top tennis players and found out that these top tennis players use these 4 sorts of energy on balance during their games, etc. Yeah, I think that in PhDs, usually the physical energy, that's okay, but they forget about the mental energy. We spoke about Qigong.
Emotional energy as well.
And emotional and spiritual. So if these are not balanced, it's not healthy.
Or maybe in addition to that, or another way to put it, I think for yourself, if you are happy, slept well, then you can do a lot in a short amount of time. But if you're, tired, not feeling so well, grumpy, whatever, then you can work all day, but not so much happens. So it's actually a prerequisite to make sure your energy is well, because then you can do what needs to be done. So it's much more important to focus on energy, so to do energy management instead of time management.
And very simple in the book, it says, when the coming week, first plan the things you like and do those things.
Yeah.
And the other things will come around it more smoothly.
Lodewijk, do you have some personal strategies when it comes to procrastination?
Yep, I had 2. I worked actually on the Wednesdays and the Sunday afternoon. And on Sunday, I asked my wife to send me up to my study room. I was procrastinating till 1 o'clock, 1:30. And then on the Wednesday and the Sunday, I thought about it, and I advised everybody not to open your email box. Because when you open the email box at 9 o'clock, you find A and B and C, and until 11, then you start. Yeah. So do it otherwise. Start with your PhD, and then at some point during the day, open your email box.
My thing
when I was doing the PhD was having writer's block. That was my thing. And not to read about it and figure out like, just write. Just write on this and then you'll figure out how to make it, fit, or maybe, that you don't need it. But what would you have, if I would have called you then, what would you tell me about this writer's block?
I would say it's very important to make a distinction in two kinds of writing. One is writing for your real article, and one is what is called free writing. And the reason that distinction is so important is that writing helps you to think. So the funny thing is, what happens when people are writing, they found out, I had it before I started writing, I thought that I had it all very clear, that I knew what I wanted to write. And then when you start writing, you find out, it was actually maybe not that clear, or it needs some adjustment or and what you are actually doing then is that you are using writing to think, to get clarity in your thoughts. Because by writing it down, you find out where the gaps are and what you do not yet know or what's not clear yet. And if you separate those kinds of writing, so writing to think, to get clarity, and writing for your actual article, life becomes a lot easier, because when you do the free writing, as it's called, the writing to think, you do it with pen and paper, no breaks, you just keep on writing without stopping. And that really helps you to get everything that's on your mind out on paper. And when it's there, you can have a look at it and then think, oh, but this is actually clear. Oh, that's not so clear yet. Oh, I want to read a bit about this. So use writing to think to get clarity. And when you have the clarity, then start the actual writing. And people mix that up. And then the writing becomes very difficult because you're doing many things at the same time.
That was one of the things I learned during the writing course. And it helped me a lot afterward.
Yeah.
Before, there was a time before and a time after. Yeah.
I'm going to mention my supervisor again because she was so helpful also during the times that I had a writer's block. So she could guide me very well. How important is it to have a good relationship with your supervisor, with the thousands of people that you've coached? Yeah.
It makes you can go through a PhD without having a good relationship with your supervisor, but it makes life much more difficult. So anything that's possible to enhance the relationship, make it happen.
Can you describe perhaps the most challenging type of supervisor to have?
Yeah, it's difficult. And I don't want to go into detail too much because there's also a lot of privacy in here. I don't want to give examples that can be related back to persons, but let's put it differently. Supervisors don't become supervisor because they are good in supervising.
Got it.
Supervisors become a supervisor because they're good at funding and getting research, and as part of the job, they need to supervise. Well, some people have a talent for it. A lot of people don't. Some people who don't have a talent see that they don't have a talent and want to learn something about it. A lot of people who don't have a talent don't see that they don't have a talent and just do how they would treat it or do what fits their personality, and that can make life very difficult.
Yeah, but what advice would you give to someone who has a supervisor who doesn't see, who doesn't have the talent to supervise, actually?
Make sure that you find a support system for yourself, because changing supervisor is quite a hassle and can be very difficult. It depends on the subject, whether it's the subject of your PhD, whether it's easy to switch. Often it's not. So then find a support system yourself. Find other people, find PhD students, find former teachers, find other professors, find different people who can help you with different bits of your PhD journey. And sometimes it's very wise not to speak about that with your actual official supervisor because they can't handle it.
Overall, what would you say is the insight that you could get from the supervisor perspective?
Well, it's basically a different point of view. When you're on your journey, you look well outside your window, and if somebody is looking from the other side, you see different things. So adding the perspective of a supervisor gives different insights and helps you to think differently about what's going on, or maybe to have different conversations with your supervisor. So that's...
And Mario says in every of her things that the goal is for both sides to get the PhD.
Yeah.
So there are differences, but realize that you're actually both hoping to finish this PhD.
Yeah.
And that gave me a nice thought, a nice feeling when I read her pieces.
Yeah.
Even after all those years experienced it myself. Actually, in the other window. Yeah.
This book has an emphasis on staying healthy. Why such a strong focus on that?
There are numbers about depression amongst PhD students. It's 1/3 of them gets depressed. So that's one of the big reasons. Healthily is part of it.
Why do you think that 1/3 gets
It's not that I don't think it. It's research.
Yeah. Based on research.
It's science.
Yes. Okay. Based on research.
Often it is too much pressure, not taking care of themselves.
Too many things at the same time.
Yeah, being lonely, not knowing where to get help. So it's a combination of, well, it's actually the process that's not been taken care of. And if that's not okay, then you get lost.
And too many prickles from social media, etc. I see it with my children and their partners. They cannot stop. They have to do everything. Be a good friend, be a good partner, be a good PhD, be a good this, be a good that. And it's too much. And they don't select and don't think. And less hours of sleep and bad sleep. And how do I sleep during the night shifts, etc. Well,
so what tips would you give?
What is prickle in English?
Yeah, signals.
Signals, yeah.
I think
so
that's
set off your mobile phone and tell your friends, sorry, I would like to go to this party, but I had too many. Every night I had something, so this night I will stay at home and do nothing.
Yeah, but that is in general, right? In general, that we maybe could, have less time with the mobile phones, with the social media and everything. Why specifically with, 1/3 of the people doing a PhD being depressed? Why is there even more that you need to take into account with balancing everything?
Well, it's quite a project you're taking on, a PhD. It's not like, okay, I go for a walk or I'm going on a trip of 2 months. No, it's a 4-year project with all kinds of unknown parts in there. It's difficult to navigate through that. And also for a lot of PhD students, candidates, when they start their PhD right after their studies, also a lot happens in life often in that stage. People get relationships, or relationships stop, or they start a family, so it's not only the PhD that's a big package. There's a lot more going on in life. And as Lodewijk said, they want to be a good PhD candidate. They want to be a good friend or wife or partner. They want to be social. They want to visit their parents. It's all kinds of things. So all this together makes it more difficult.
And they cannot say no. I realized that I was 50 when I started. And after some 5-6 years, my supervisor wanted me to write an article. And I said, I'm not going to do it. Sorry. And after some time, she accepted it. But I realized that if you are 25, that's another life stage. It's difficult to say no.
Much more difficult,
And somebody pointed out that the positive healthcare, do you know it?
The what?
The positive healthcare.
I read, you have been involved with positive healthcare.
Yeah, and actually this morning I thought it up, searched it up, and it said it's all about balance. Physical functions, mental functions, be happy, purpose in life, quality of life, social, and your daily functioning. And I looked it over and thought, well, actually in the next edition we could put it on the flap.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's all about balance. And it's like these energies we discussed before, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about learning how to prioritize yourself.
Yeah.
And make choices according to that. And that's not easy, because there is a lot of pressure upon you, also from the university, from academia, to produce and to give output, because the university depends on that.
For me, doing a PhD did a lot for my personal development, indeed.
Yeah.
Because there where I thought like, I'm good at time management, energy management, all kind of management, this really put it to the test.
Absolutely.
It's a huge project indeed, for years upon years. Yeah. And it's very underestimated. Although you read about the mental health issues that people tend to get. Only when you go through it yourself, you're like, this is tough.
I often say to people, well, actually a PhD journey it's about personal development. And yes, there's also your subject.
Professional development,
but
definitely.
That's actually secondary. It's much more about personal development.
You think it's secondary even?
Yes.
Actually, I interviewed Annelien Bredenoord. She's
a great person.
Great person. Yeah. And I was so proud that she said that the university says student success is more important than study success.
Could you say who she is?
Yes, she is the rector of the dean of the Erasmus University, and now chairman of the chairman of the highest board. The board. Great woman, yeah, indeed. But also that student success is more important than study success. And I said, is that the same for PhD? Yeah. The development of PhD candidates is more important than the content, what comes out of it. And it's a great thing, yeah.
How long did you work on your PhD again?
9 years.
What were the major setbacks for you, would you say?
Now, the one of the setbacks was the stalemate of some months. And the other setbacks was that, as I said, Arjenne explained the difference between free writing and scientifically writing and all these things that about the process, what she says, is more important than the content. But I didn't know anything about it. And they, in one or another way, they thought that that I could do it. And these things, there were a lot of pitfalls. Yeah.
How did you stay motivated? What kept you going?
As I said, Laura, the student, then I could talk. And in one or another, I didn't want to stop it. And it was sometimes very interesting. I remember that I missed on Sunday afternoon the Wimbledon final. But then at a certain point, I got an insight during that afternoon. And that was such a beautiful moment that we say the coin fell. And then I thought, well, okay, I like to see the final. But this was rewarding. And there are also these moments. Then when you're desperate, an article is accepted. And this is such a fine moment that your article is there somewhere. And so, I kept... And somebody said to me, some 2 years before I ended, I came to another who was just graduated or had her PhD and said, keep on going. It's such a fine time that when you finish, it's such a beautiful moment. Everybody comes there for you, and you're in the center, and they say it's marriage in your own, huh? And it was like that. Yeah, I was very proud. Yeah.
Is there such thing as failure during the PhD process? There must be, right?
No. Depending on how you look, what your perspective is, on how you look at it. But you do your PhD to learn things, and there's lots and lots to learn, especially when you fail, or what's so-called failure.
Okay.
So depending on how you look at it, if you have if things don't go well, do you then think, I'm a failure because I didn't do it right the first time? Or do you think, I'm doing something I've never done before, it's new, first time didn't go right. What can I learn from this? And how can I take another step? And if you can approach it with that frame of mind, then it's one big, basically fun experiment where you can find out things both about yourself and about the subject you're busy with.
It says falling is not important. It matters how you start again.
What if you fall and you don't get up? For instance, what if you quit? You don't complete it.
Well, I interviewed one of those quitters.
Ronald, I read about him.
Yeah.
He's anonymous because he's the son of a well-known professor. And he said after 1 year, I made a plan. And then after 1 year, I concluded that my supervisors were so slowly with checking all those things that he said I would never made it in 4 years. So after a lot of thinking, he said I quit, which was, they never understood it. But he got another good job. And you learn the best from failure. I was once fired in a probationary period. So I had nothing, but afterwards it was the best period of my life because you know yourself, you know your friends, your partner, and you can do anything you always thought of and never came to it. So I started my own company and was happy for the next 20 years.
Yeah. Can be very good to quit.
Or to fall.
Or to fall. Because PhD is not for everyone, is it?
No, but it doesn't have to be. I mean, I'm very happy without having a PhD. Yeah.
The ones who are interested in doing a PhD or they are already doing a PhD, what are your hopes in the main takeaways that they will get out of this?
Focus on the process.
Yeah.
Process first.
And keep healthy.
The readers and the listeners that want to get this book, where can they find it?
There's a website. It's easy to remember because it's the title of the book. It's travelguidetoyourphd.com. You'll find it. There's a preview in there, so you can have a look through it to see if it appeals to you.
And where can they find you, Arjenne?
On the DutchPhDcoach.com. It's also on the website Travel Guide to Your PhD. At the very bottom, you'll find a link to my website and where they can contact me.
Where can they find you, Lodewijk?
www.smitjongbloedadvies.nl. But you'll find me in the book as well.
Lodewijk, Arjenne, thank you so much.
Thank you too.
Happy to be here. Nice talk.